to order at 9:32 on Thursday, December 17th, and it's a special board meeting for the budget. So we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So move.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so the capital budget recommendations and discuss. Who would like to start?
I think it's probably me, right?
Well, if you'd like to, sure, go ahead.
Okay. You all have, can you see this schedule?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
I mean, I have mine.
So what we're looking at is the capital budget analysis cash flow review. That's the first schedule.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to go through it by column. First, the voted column, 2020-21. This is what we voted and approved a year ago. This was then added to the next column, which made the funds available for 2020-21 the following. For highway, road, and structures, $73,437. For the highway equipment, $318,431. For guardrails, $20,000. For town hall requirements, $11,239. For the computer upgrade program, $11,404. For the maintenance of the bridges, $27,000. And for our bridge construction program, which is the Walker Bridge, $74,759, and that does not count the $100,000 that was approved a couple of years ago. Now, what are we going to spend in 2020-21? Well, we've spent $54,000 on the highway, road, and structures program, and that's for the Hinkley Brook culvert replacement. That's what was spent. That leaves a balance for 6/30/2021 estimated at $19,437. Highway equipment, we have spent $23,198 on the lease payment for the excavator, and we're going to spend $154,372 on the truck number 4 replacement. That's going to leave a balance as of 6/30/2021 of $141,059. Guardrails program, we're not intending to spend anything per Danny. The fire truck fund, we've spent the $15,000, so there's nothing there. Town hall requirements, we still have the $11,239 as nothing has been spent as of this time. Computer upgrade program, still have $11,400. Bridge maintenance program, we have $27,000, and the bridge construction program, the same $74,759.
Hey, Hardy, go back to highway equipment.
Yes.
I don't know. I might have got lost in there. It didn't sound like any of the figures that you said are the figures that I have.
Excuse me?
The highway equipment. Just go back through that line again.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
It was $177,372 that was spent?
Yes, or will be spent by the end of this year.
Okay, so then the projected fund balance is $141,059?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that's what's here.
And did you get the two items there, the excavator lease payment and truck number 4 replacement?
Oh, yeah, right. Yep.
Okay, then what we're looking at for spending for the coming year is number 1 in the highway equipment, $23,198 again, which is the lease, and then probably another $15,000 for the fire truck if we approve that today. Now let's go to the proposed line. Basically, I want to start at the top and skip over the highway equipment until the end. Highway equipment, road and structures, I put in, and the team has put in $3,563. If you go to the second sheet, which would be highway structures and culverts, which looks something like this, you can see that there are 3 projects on the sheet of paper. The first one is already completed, which was done a year ago. Chester Road, number 1, 2019 and 20 was the year that it was completed for $79,111. Project number 2, which was completed this past year, is the Hinckley Brook project we talked about, where it cost us $54,000, but we got a $110,000 grant from the state, which made the total project $164,000. We're looking now at probably not doing another culvert until around 2026 or 27. To do that, we probably won't do that unless we get a V-Trans grant, which would be 90% of the cost. Now, the next project on our list was Fisher Hill number 10 for $198,000. If we got the 90% grant, that's $175,000, and it would cost us $23,000. We already have, as you can see there, $19,437 in our fund as of today. If we were to add $3,563, we'd have $23,000, which would be what we would need in 2027, 28, or in that time period. So we're recommending no more than that at this time. Any questions on the culverts? Okay, the next thing I want to jump to is the fire truck fund. We're putting in again $15,000. We've had no communication regarding this fund or what we should be looking for as far as a new fire truck, etc. So we're recommending just go with the same amount that we've been doing, which will yield them about a reserve balance of probably close to $150,000 towards a new truck. Any questions or discussion on that? But that was our recommendation.
Hardy, if my memory serves me, last year when we went over the budget, they were supposed to give us some kind of a schedule or something. Did we ever get that?
No.
Okay.
I remember that.
We haven't gotten anything. There has been a zero. I haven't heard a word this year. So, and I don't think anybody else on our committee has. And so the committee, voted to go with the same thing that we've done, which means they will have a reserve of about $150,000 towards whatever they want to get in the future, or when it comes time.
Hardy, did you try to contact anybody on the fire department on this?
No. I did mention it a few months ago to Mr. Matt.
Mr. Chair, this is Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
You know that Chappie's been very, very ill. He's
Yep.
been in chemotherapy for about 3 months.
Yep.
And that could have been the reason why no one heard from him, but Stan could probably speak to that better than I.
I passed the message along. Both the chief and Chappie has been aware of it. I don't follow either one of them on a daily basis, so I don't know quite where they are with it. But they were aware that they needed to present a program. I can certainly, there's going to be a change in the officers in the fire department. I can certainly contact the new group and see where they stand with that.
Any other comments on that?
I just
Okay.
say it would seem like if they wanted more money, they would have been proactive and said, we need to bump that 15,000 up. So it seems like your committee made a kind of a logical assumption that you hadn't heard anything, so 15 is still a good number.
Yes. That was our reasoning, basically.
I agree with your thinking there. Yeah. People want money, they speak.
Okay, the next column is town hall requirements. We have 11,239 there. Stan sent me an email where he has a couple of potential projects. One of them, do you want to comment on them, Stan, or do you want me to just mention them?
I don't have those figures right in front of me, but one was to finish the replacement of the windows.
Right, that was for about $14,000 in your letter.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the electrical system upgrade between 10 and 12,000, but that was a rough number. So we have this 11,239 right now. Kim also has in one of her reserves another 11,000. So we have about $22,000 available for the town hall updates, which probably is enough for the coming year, I would think.
Yeah.
Hardy, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And maybe it's more directed to Stan or John, but at one point there was discussion about the foam insulation in the basement and scheduling with the closing of the building in order for that to happen. But I never heard that it actually did take place. Did that work get done, or does that still need to be done?
75% of it is done. They ran out of product. The only thing they have to finish up is underneath Bill's office. Everything else is completed.
Okay. Okay.
And
so have we been billed for the work already done?
no,
Or, okay, so that work has to come out of this number as well?
I actually don't know. It was about 6,000 if I remember right. Again, I don't have that paperwork in front of me. And I'm not exactly sure. I know it was projected to be spent, but I actually don't remember where it was coming out of.
And there was a little extra added to that bill because they had to do it on a weekend.
Yeah, that's included in that 6,000. Yeah. But
Does
they're
Kim
coming
know
back.
whether
Actually, the schedule to be finished now is January 9th.
do we have any more bills to come in related to this project? Or have we paid?
I don't know if Kim has gotten, I haven't heard if anything has been billed out yet.
I haven't gotten any other bills.
So they'll probably just bill the whole thing out when it's finished. We have a proposal on that, so it should be that amount of the proposal.
Okay, any other questions, comments there?
So just for clarity, it isn't really 11,239. It's 11,239 minus 6,000.
Plus another 11,000 that Kim has, which is probably where that 6,000 was going to come out of.
Okay.
Computer upgrade program, we presently have 11,404. We don't have anything in sight right now. There's a possible program that we might do related to, Kim, you want to comment on it? Because I'm not exactly sure what that project was.
Well, one of the projects we were thinking about is about a year and a half ago almost now, we talked about bringing up a firewall. So bringing all the wiring from down in the basement and putting it up into the lister's office into a large box. Dominia had given us a quote back then and it was approximately $8,000. So we haven't moved forward on that and I'm waiting to get another estimate from them, but that might be another project to really be considering.
The point is, I think if we do that, we have the money available. So that's where we are. Okay, any other questions on that? Bridge maintenance program, we have 27,000. We thought we would just run it up to 30, make it an even number. So we added 3,000 there to make $30,000. Danny does not plan on utilizing this money in the next year, as far as we know, and that's what he expressed to us. The bridge construction program, $6,391.
The bridge maintenance program. John and I talked to Danny about the budget last week, I think it was, and what Danny is saying that even at $27,000, even if you brought it up to 30, you can't do very much. The cost of rehabilitating the bridge with the painting and everything else. So I'm just wondering, maybe that $3,000 should go somewhere else other than the bridge maintenance program, into the town hall or some other item, because you're going to put the money in there, but it's not going to get used.
It's your discretion to use it as how you see fit as a select board. So you can do whatever you want. And in fact, that 30,000 could be switched anywhere if you want to.
Okay, so none of these funds are absolutely dedicated to the category then?
That's correct. That's what we discovered last year, and that's why we call them projects. There's, you know, projects that are presented to you for you to spend the money as you deem the most appropriate for it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
The money that's in these projects, if it's not used, where does it go? Does it stay in that project, or it can be moved anywhere you want it?
It can be moved anywhere the select board wants it moved. If you were to tell Kim or me to move it, we would move it.
Is that to any capital budget project?
Yes.
So as long as it stays in the capital budget, you can put it in any of those categories.
Well, I don't think then you have to move it. You can leave it right there, and then if you do have to, then that's the time to do
Then
it.
you do it, and that's your
Exactly.
decision.
Right, so
Exactly.
leave it where it is.
Agree.
It's a lot of money.
Anything else?
Well,
Bridge
the bridge construction program.
Okay, we'll move on to the bridge construction program. The estimate, and there is a schedule which I gave you that's in your packet. Basically, the total amount of the Walker Bridge replacement was estimated at $4,148,460,000. Our 10% cost share is $414,846,000. We presently have collected through taxes in 2018 $100,000, 2019-20 another $36,500 to get to $136,500, and in this past capital budget another $46,391, which would get us to $182,891 towards that goal of $414,846. If we continue doing this at $46,391 a year, we would have that money by 2025-26. So that's our logic there, and that we came up with last year, and we're keeping it the same right now.
Has there been any word about what they feel as though the construction timeline for that? I thought it was originally 23 they were going to build it. That might be out now.
I don't know
They
of
don't-
any.
they don't have any idea.
Danny has anything.
No,
Bill,
no,
you
Stan,
don't know
they
anything,
have,
do
when
you?
I have asked Mark Pickering, they have no idea.
Okay, any questions there? Now I'd like to move on to the highway equipment depreciation schedule, which has across the top all of our equipment. So I'm going to start right at the left hand column, and you can see the different categories are expected life in years for the various equipment, the cost of the equipment, replacement cost new, estimated at trade-in, and then we go into the depreciation per year and ultimately come up with when it looks like we'd have to replace the equipment. So the first one is truck number 1, purchase date was 2018, and it's a 7-year life when it was purchased. And that cost was $193,340. We're estimating that it cost new would be about $200,000, and a trade-in would be about $40,000. That would be with the 7-year life. The future budget cost looks like it could be $160,000 roughly. And if you look down, you would see that we would have to replace that truck approximately 2025. That's where the box is. The next one is truck number 2, purchase date 2016, another 7-year life, $159,298, one new. We're expecting the replacement cost to be around $175, and we should get $30,000 with a 7-year life. The trade-in would future budget cost $145,000, and we would need to replace that in 2023. Then we get to the pickup. If we have a 5-year life there, that could be as much as 7 years, but we have it in at 5. That's going to cost us $25,000, and we would be replacing that in 2025. Truck number 4, the purchase date is this year, or 2021, basically, and $154,174 is what it's going to cost us. A new one will cost us $180,000, and a trade-in would be $40,000 or $140,000, and that's basically still over a 7-year life. It's possible that, and that would come due if we did it in 5 years in 2027, or if we pushed it out a couple more years, it'd be 2029. We can discuss that in a little bit later here. The loader is a 12-year life, cost us $174,500. Replacement cost new is $185, and Danny got an estimated trade-in on that of $85,000, so it's going to cost us $100,000, and that would come due in 2025. The next item is the backhoe, purchased in 2012. The plan is not to replace the backhoe, so we do not have that in as a replacement because of the excavator purchase. The grader purchase was 2010, the 15-year life, $173,900 is what it cost us then. They're estimating that a new one's going to cost us $300,000, and the trade-in that Danny has got from whoever he would be purchasing this from is $100,000, so it's costing us $200,000. That also comes due in 2025. We then get the tractor and the excavator, whose lives are 20 years and go out well into the future. So are there any questions on this schedule before we move to the next one?
You got a lot of purchases in 25.
Yeah.
That's correct, and that's where we come to the next next schedule. So the next schedule is the analysis of the equipment cash needs in the future here. So in 2021-22, and that's a schedule that looks like this. It has analysis of equipment cash needs at the top. In 2021-22, we know we're going to spend $23,000 for the excavator. In 2022-23, by the schedule, we have another excavator payment, plus the replacement of truck number 2 for $145,000. So that's $168,000. In 2023-24, we have the excavator lease, the final year of it, $23,198, and the replacement of truck number 3 for $25,000, which is $48,198. And then in 2024-25, we have replacement truck number 1 for $160,000, the loader for $100,000, and the grader for $200,000, a total of $460,000. So that's total cash over 4 years in the future here of $699,594. Less the equipment fund balance as of 6/30/21 of $141,059. We need to plan for roughly, if we buy all of these things, $558,535. So if you spent that over 4 years, it would be $139,634 a year. Or if you spent it over 5 years, it would be $111,707. There are other options as well, which we discussed as a capital budget committee. Chester, as an example, regularly purchases or borrows money to buy their equipment. As an example, in last year's notice of town expenses before they had their town meeting. Article number 6 was to see if they would borrow $140,000 for a new dump truck, and to be spent over 4 years. So you have options of how you want to purchase your equipment. We're not necessarily saying we should do that, but that is an option. Or you could push the grader out a year, and that would reduce the cash needs to $116,347. But again, who knows how much you'd lose on the trade-in value. $100,000 right now for that is pretty significant. So what we looked at was, if we spent the whole amount of money, that's going to make our total requirements going up from this year's 175 to 207,588, which actually would be approximately, a 3 or 4 cent increase in our tax rate. We didn't think that was necessarily realistic. So the committee settled on basically a midpoint. They said, let's go with 190,000 bottom line, which would be a highway equipment number of 122,046, which would represent, this represents roughly a 1 cent increase in the taxes. Actually, the full amount would be a 2 cent increase. And people decided they thought it was wise to go with the 1 cent increase, because nobody knows what the taxes are going to be in the coming year relative to the education, et cetera, and the impacts of COVID-19. So that's what the Capital Budget Committee represented and presented.
Hardy, what figures make up 122,046?
That's just a number. Instead of 139,000, which it would take to get it in 4 years, that's
Right.
just a number to get to the 190.
Okay. So you reduce some of them.
We reduced some for this 1 year. You could always, if we didn't fund something else in the next year, increase that. So, or you could even go up even more. It's just, if we need to spend 558,000 in 4 years without borrowing any money, we got to get there somehow. And the 122 is a start towards that number. And that was what was voted on by the Capital Budget Committee. That's not my number or anything. It's a fallout number based on the feelings of the whole committee.
But what items did you reduce?
I didn't reduce anything in particular.
But you had to reduce something to get down to 122.
No, because we're spending the bulk of the money in the 2024-25 year. That's when we need $460,000 going out the door. We have enough money with the 122 to pay for whatever we need in the next couple of years.
Wasn't there a discussion at one time on the truck 1 and 2 to reduce those to 5 years rather than 7?
That's correct, and I have done that on the schedule, but you aren't going to probably do that until they come due, okay? In other words, you can't do it all at once.
Right.
So we have reduced. If you look at truck number 4, that's a 4-year life or 5-year life, and that would be in $140,000 in 2027. Danny did get a little bit of information on that. I got to see if I can find it. That it's quite possible that that we could get a $55,000 trade-in on our truck if we were to go to a five-year life. But we're going to have to figure that out over the next few years, whether this really works or not. But basically, you've got to improve or reduce, what you spend on maintenance costs and depreciation by about $40,000 a year. So if we were to get a trade-in increase up to $55,000, it definitely would make sense, okay? But that's going to be a decision you will be making as we move forward here. You aren't going to, that's not something that really comes into bear this year, other than starting to plan for it.
Yep.
Can I ask a question, Artie?
Of course.
It's more directed to John. I listened to the capital budget discussion and how the group came up with this number and recommendation. And when the vote was taken, there was one dissenting vote on picking that number, and it was John. So obviously he either wanted more money or less money. And I didn't get to hear what his thought was. John, can you comment on that?
Well, I think I explained it when I was doing it, that I wanted the full amount and not have it reduced.
Okay, I kind of got that impression, but I didn't remember hearing you say that.
Well, I think I even said more, that every year the highway gets cut, because that's the only place you can cut. You can't cut the school, and the school goes up and nothing is done because you can't do it. So the highway gets it, and this is what happens now. It's getting cut. It's getting cut again, and it's not right. This is equipment that people have to rely on to go to work and make a living. You know, and go grocery shopping and all that. So that was my reasoning.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And anybody that's run that equipment in the snow and the ice and salt and chloride and all that knows what it takes for a beating.
Yep. So you, if you had gotten what you thought was appropriate, it would have been how much more, John?
I don't know what Hardy's figure was. 200 and something.
No, it would have been 139,000 a year instead of the 122.
122.
Yeah.
And Hardy, that's a 2-cent increase on taxes, roughly?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is Suzanne. May I ask a question,
Sure.
please? Hardy, you had mentioned in the other budget discussion, the previous budget discussion, that these funds are fungible among the various line items by the select board decision.
Yes.
Is the same thing true about this 122,000 or the 139, depending on which way the decision goes? Or
Yes.
are those funds restricted to the use of saving them for future purchase of the trucks?
No. It's just.
No to which? No that it's not fungible, or no that it is restricted?
It's not restricted. We had an opinion, I think all of us last year, from our accountant, that none of these funds, and that's why we changed the name from reserve to fund, were restricted. They're there for the select board to spend as is needed. But we're preparing for the future. That's the purpose of the funds.
Thank you.
So I think the simple answer is the select board has the ability to go to the higher number if they want to.
And Hardy, I just for the minute's sake. So at 122 you're at 1 cent, and at 139 you're at how many cents?
About 2 cents.
2 cents. Thank you.
So it seems to me that by listening to the questions and Hardy's presentation, is that everybody seems to be okay, but there might be some reluctance or some wish to increase the highway equipment amount. I'm just summarizing. So.
I think everybody's in agreement that we should provide more money than we have in the past. Last year we only provided 75,000, so this year we're recommending 122, and it could be as high as obviously the 139.
But what creates that is because you have 3 pieces of equipment due all at once.
That's true, and it's out 4 years.
Right.
So you can you can do the 122 this year and then next year say, hey, we got to get to the other and make it even more. Okay, so I mean, you can go to the 2 cents next year. You can make it, because it's not due for 4 years, all of this stuff. You have a little leeway here to figure out your game plan of how you want to proceed.
Well, the grader could be pushed 1 year, maybe. You never know.
The key there, I think, would be, you know, what we would get as a, you know, as a trade-in for it.
Trade-in.
I mean, we don't want to, you know, do it a year later and lose $25,000 in the trade-in or something.
Danny's concern on the grader is so much electronics that, you know, it's kind of unknown when all those electronics would start to act up and would greatly influence its resale value or trade-in value.
Well, if we use the fire department for an example, the ladder truck, the chassis on that truck is 20 years old now. We did that, but the ladder itself is close to 40. And we've had fairly high expenses on all the electronics on it. So the grader probably could potentially follow the same thing. The mechanics of it is fine, and it's exactly what it is. It's the electrical, the electronic aspect of it.
All the surrounding towns that have equipment like this do not keep the equipment out like 15 years for grader.
Right.
But this grader here, the grader that you have now, you don't use it for plowing. Now you just use it for grading. So it only gets 300 hours a year approximately use.
Correct. But in the also example, doesn't Chester have 2 graders? So, I mean, they have a backup. If something happened, they're not completely without a grader, and we rely on only one.
Right, but you could rent one someplace if you had to have it.
But Chester has many more back roads than we do.
Mm.
That wasn't my point.
No, I know, but I mean, that's why they need 2 graders. I don't think they have a grader there because it's a backup. They probably need it to keep up with the roads, I would imagine.
They use it for grading in the spring because there's so many roads.
Right.
Sean, can I ask you a question? Yeah, my question is, what's the mileage in roads that we have compared to our equipment in terms of, are we overloaded on equipment or are we about right?
Oh,
Sorry.
that's a good question. I guess you have the equipment that fits the people that you have. You have 3 employees and you have 3 trucks. If you only had 2 employees, would you have just 2 trucks? I don't think 2 trucks could. So I would say yes, you're probably pretty well fit with the equipment you need.
Can I speak to that, Kathy?
Sure.
When we were planning for the town garage, we corresponded and spent quite a bit of time with West Wethersfield, which is a town size-wise, mileage-wise, everything very similar to ours. And equipment-wise, we are appropriate, but they actually have one more truck because they have a 4-person crew now rather than a 3-person crew. So I would say for what we have, we're about right.
I guess I was thinking in terms of, I'm looking at almost $500,000 or more dollars in the next 4 to 5 years we have to, raise. It's a lot of money, and as a taxpayer, and not for myself, but the taxpayers out there, they're going to look at this. Are we too top heavy? That was my question. Thank you for answering it.
Well, I guess the question is, we need some kind of a motion, I think. I mean, how do we want to proceed? We have to tackle the regular budget. So somebody want to make some kind of a motion, or do you have any more questions of Hardy before we move on?
My only question is, I guess, is a procedural one for Bill. I believe you say we have a public hearing coming up on the same subject, which I don't quite understand, but isn't it after the public hearing that the select board would vote on what they want to do here? I don't really know. It's a procedural thing.
Yes, it isn't clear to me because it isn't a public hearing in the sense of state law. Therefore, it doesn't have to be publicized in the same way. But our policy says that you will have a public hearing on it. For that reason, I didn't want to do it today because I wanted it to be at a meeting that was far enough out that people would realize it. So, yes, there's a public hearing on it on Monday, along with a public hearing on the town plan. And your vote on that should take place at that meeting. But you could give an indication today on what your feeling is so that Hardy can either present more or be ready to discuss more at that meeting. I don't think you need to spend a lot of time on it at that meeting. It's giving people a chance to look at the budget and comment on it. That's all. Whether they do or not, that's up to them.
And if they comment, I'm guessing that really still leaves the decision up to the select board as to what they want to do. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But if the board here today agrees in principle that they either want to keep the 122 or the 139 or something in between, then when we do have this public hearing, then the select board can say, yes, we agree and we would like to do one or the other. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd make a motion that anticipating future expenses going up for whatever reason, either shortening the lifespan of a truck or however that may fall in, if we're going to anticipate additional spending, I'd make a motion that we start moving ahead with that thought process and budget 139,000 rather than 121.
Is there kind of a second to that?
I know I was for that, but I've been thinking some more about it. With it being 4 years down the road, we still have time to do something about it like next year. So that probably we could still stick with the 122.
I kind of agree with John, and I was thinking the same way, that maybe we should just bite the bullet. But when you kind of look at what the year we have with the COVID, and the school could be a real disaster this year. The taxes could really skyrocket. And like John, and I agree with what John is saying, is that we have a few more years to catch up. Maybe we should go with a little more conservative number and go with the 122, and then rethink this whole thing next year.
And you also have other categories that you can take money out of, like the bridge maintenance program. So, because that you're never going to reach a figure in the bridge maintenance program of enough money to do anything. I don't care what you do, you're never going to make it because stuff is so expensive when you work on a bridge. But that's one of them. So I guess I've changed my mind a little bit. But either way, I would go either way right now. But
I think if the concern with COVID and school, if those things happen, and next year you have to come to them and say, well, we put it off last year because we were worried about it happening. And then we're going to be saying, now that it happened, now we have to raise it because we couldn't commit to it last year. I think we should do it now. So I second Stan's motion.
You just like Alan just said, I think if you don't do it, you're just going to kick the can down the road and you're going to have to suffer for it more in the next 3 or 4 years.
It's going to be really hard to tell them next year that we have to do it now that we know those things have gone up. Right now, we're just concerned that they might go up.
Well, I'm kind of, I agree with you, Alan, as well. If you don't do it now, yes, you can play catch up, but then it's going to be expensive, more expensive perhaps. And
It'll
you
be
don't,
hard to tell them after you know it's gone up,
Yeah.
to say, oh, well, now we need to do it.
There's always something that comes up.
You bet.
Yeah.
Oh,
You bet. There's never a good time to pay taxes.
No,
This is also presented to the town as an article, I believe.
Yes, it's a
Yes.
separate article.
yeah. Yeah, the town has the ability to, whether it's an Australian ballot or on the floor, they have the ability to amend it or do whatever they want to do with it, yes.
Well, this year, they're not probably going to be able to amend it because it probably will be an Australian ballot vote, which will be just a yes, no.
Yeah, and if they voted it down, then would, the town would be, they would have to pay more taxes in future years. They only go up the inevitable.
So if it gets voted down, that means that we have to go back and rework a budget and then bring it back to the voters a second time? Is that how that would work?
I
Only
believe
if you called a special meeting.
it would be for the
Well,
capital only.
Otherwise, if it got voted down and we did nothing, then we would have no budget. Is that correct?
Yeah.
No capital budget.
No capital.
Budget. You'd have a budget, but no capital budget.
Well, that's what I meant, yeah.
So
But
you
you still
want
have
to take into
within it.
consideration, what do you think the people are going to think with a yes, no vote?
Probably no.
Good question.
It's hard to second guess what they're going to say, but it's certainly a lot easier to make a check for the no column than to stand up and fight for it on the floor. That's for sure.
Right.
I think we're supposed to make our best recommendation based on the information we have. If the voters overrule us, they overrule us, but we're doing it. We have the advantage of all these numbers that Hardy and Danny have given us. We may have to do some explaining in our informational meeting, but
well, there is a
Mr.
motion
Chair,
on the floor.
this is Suzanne. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Last year, Hardy, correct me if I'm wrong, our education taxes went up about 10%. And I think the prediction is another 9 to 10%. Is that on top of the 10% we were already raised last year? And do you have any insight into what our education tax is going to be, since you're working on that too?
At this point, the 9% they're talking about would be the non-residential tax rate. Because of the shortfall in all of the things that go into that, sales tax, etc. So that 9% is the non-res tax. The homestead tax comes from the school budget that gets approved, divided by the equalized head count, and then spread by the head count in the towns. So nobody knows whether that's going to be 9%, 10%, 20%, 5%, no percent. It all depends on what the school budget is that's approved, divided by the equalized head count. Does that answer your question, Suzanne?
It does, except when will we know what that school budget is? It just seems to me a variable in the discussion about what
That's
the voters
correct.
are going to do.
And there was a budget meeting the other night, which, I saw the budget, and obviously the budget went up that they're presenting so far, but it's, 3 months down the road before they even complete that budget, I would say, based on what I can see.
Was that budget that they came up with, is that around 17,000 per child?
They didn't even get into that. All they did was show what the total spending level would be, and they had an increase of about 4%. And they also mentioned at that meeting, the principals mentioned that all they did was basically take where they are today and add economics. So nobody has any inkling there, okay, right now, in my opinion.
Suzanne?
I certainly don't.
Suzanne,
Yes,
the town budget gets approved in March, but really, nobody knows what the school budget is gonna be until June.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
there's no way to equate and say, well, the school budget's gonna go up 10% or 5%. You have to vote for the town budget as you see, and whatever happens, happens, and unfortunately, that's what happens.
yeah.
And I'll just throw out one of the other.
I'm just trying to empathize with the voter, such as I, and think about the big picture of our taxes and how people are going to react to the town budget in that context.
But there's also, what you have to remember, Suzanne, too, and is that even though I know each one of us wants to keep the budget as low as possible, but we can't control inflation. We can't control what a cost of a truck is. We can't control maintenance. There's a lot of things we just can't control. And if you keep trying to level fund something, eventually it all backfires, because you can't control only what you can do. You control how much salt you put on. You can control your salaries of your employees. You can control things like that, but you can't control what the cost of a truck is, or what the cost of paving is going to be, or anything else.
At that meeting, they said there was a 63% increase in special education. And Jack Breyer says, no, that's not right. And he laid the problem on the financial computer system. So I don't know.
That's because I think they didn't put in any, money that they get back from the state to offset the special education. The other thing, they had on the spreadsheets for assessments, they had Grafton listed as Westminster and Westminster listed in Grafton, and they showed us with $1 million increase in our assessment and only 200,000 for Westminster. So I mean,
we do have a motion on the floor. So I think the discussion should really be towards the motion, and then let's decide how you want to then maybe take the vote once everybody is satisfied.
I just think it's kind of interesting, if you go back to John's comments, that we can always spend the money for schools because of whatever reason, but we can cut the highway, which the buses travel, people travel. It's like, why is, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of education, but why is it such a sacred cow over the safety of people traveling on our road systems? I don't get it.
It's so hard to level fund equipment that prices go up all the time, fuel, maintenance of it, and everything. And so I've fought with this for the last 30 years on the capital budget, and every time I've been voted down on it. It's not right, because that equipment is what makes the roads safe for people to travel on.
Well, you got a chance to vote different, John.
Do we want to call the question, or do we have further discussion?
Call the question.
Okay, so maybe since this might be a controversial, how about if we do it by individual? Alan, how do you vote? Yay or nay?
Yay.
Kathy?
Yes.
Dan?
Yay.
John?
What are we voting on?
On to vote to
32.
The 139?
Yeah.
You voted nay, Stan?
I thought it was 122.
No,
we
yes,
moved to 122 to 139.
Do the 139.
139. You want to restart?
You want to back up and have Bill reread the motion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bill, you want to reread it, please?
Yep, just a second. That we budget the 139 figure. Now, I think it's 139 something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I can just hang on.
Okay, we should have the exact amount.
139,634.
139,634 instead of 122,
046.
Yep,
122 what?
046.
046. Okay.
Okay, so now that we have the motion, Alan, let's start again, so we all know what we're voting for. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Kathy?
Nay.
Stan?
Yay.
Wait a minute, I didn't catch. Please say yes or no.
Yes.
Yay and nay
Yes.
sounds the same to me.
Okay.
Start over.
Alan is yes, Kathy is
Yes.
no so far. Stan?
Yes.
Wait a minute, Kathy is?
No.
Stan is yes. John?
Yes.
John is yes, and I'm yes. So we have 4 yeses, 1 no.
Okay.
What are you scratching your head for, Alan?
Itchy.
All right, so are we done with the capital budget with Hardy now? Or do we have
You-
any other issues that we need to talk about?
You need to then approve the total amount, please.
Which is,
And Hardy's gonna probably have to give you that number.
Yeah.
It's
I'm gonna have
not gonna
to,
be 190 anymore.
I think it's gonna be 207, 588. But
Oh
still,
my
how does this relate to our public hearing? That's my question, I guess. Are we jumping the gun here a little bit?
No, because I think what's
I'm
happening,
gonna put in my schedule, which I will go over at the public hearing, the higher number.
yes.
Okay. Then
So
I
it'll
think
come out to 207 or whatever at that point, and then you people will have the opportunity to vote on that, I believe, right? Or approve it, or,
then, yeah,
right?
the motion should be that the numbers used for the public hearing will be the budget you presented, but using 139,634 instead of 122,046.
Right.
And then if they disapprove that, then the selectmen could also change their mind again, I guess, because
Yeah.
this is not official.
And then it'll also come out in the wash when there's an article put before the voters.
That is correct.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, is there anything else on the capital budget?
Well, you need to make that motion.
Oh, okay. Somebody make that motion?
Make that motion.
Second it.
Any discussion? So, all in favor of the motion that you want to read the motion? Alan?
Okay, that Hardy will present at the meeting the capital budget in the total sum of $207,588.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. So it's 5-0. So, what else, Hardy? Do you need anything else from us?
I don't think so.
Does the board need anything else from Hardy?
Yeah, I just want to say, Hardy, when will you have those figures in a schedule that I can look at?
I can give them to you tomorrow. I just gotta go on the computer and pull up the program and change the number. Basically,
Okay,
that's all I gotta do.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So the next item on the agenda is the approval or changing or agreeing of the budget of 2021-22. Kim, do you have anything you want to start with this? You had another issue that you want to discuss too, I think.
Yeah, actually, why don't we do that first? I've been in touch with Fred from Sullivan Powers and Jenna. We should have our audit back probably today. I got it last Thursday, but I've been going back and forth because some things weren't allocated in particular categories that I wanted when it came to the reserve. So we're working on that. The management letter looks really good. As soon as I get that back today, I'm hoping it's today, she promised it, I'll have Bill forward the board copy of the draft along with the management letter. And that's for the purpose of just the select board. And once we get the hard copy, then it'd be available for the public. But what we need to do, according to Fred right now, we had money that we didn't use on the paving. In 2018, we created what was a reserve, an article for a reserve that people voted on for retreatment. But we didn't move money into it. Our intent was to have it and then move money into it. So when we had money left over from what Danny and them did not spend in the paving, that's considered unassigned money. So there was no restrictions to it and there was no assignment of the money. And the same happened for 2019, even though it's still sitting there. So in 2019, we had $95,993 left in the paving that our intent was it to go into the reserve. And then in 2020, when we finished our year last year, we had $95,230 to move for a total of $191,223. So we were going to take, in which we did this year, we took all of those two funds along with our new 105 and we spent it on our retreatment paving this year. So that's fine. Everything worked out good. But what Fred needs you to do is to make a motion as a board to actually move that money into the restricted account for the year 2018 and the 2019. So we do have a total of $191,223 on the page of my balance sheet in the reserve. So that's where we're at right now. So he wanted to know if you could make that motion and then they can follow through with the rest of the audit report showing that that's the money that's in the reserve.
You said restricted account, but did you mean reserved account?
It means the same. Restricted is reserved because restricted was voted on upon the voters.
Okay.
Assigned, from, if I'm getting this right from Fred, assigned is the select board assigns the money. Restricted, the voters say what happens with the money. They're pretty much the same, other than the assigned, the select board can do as they like with the money. Restricted is only up to the voters. But either way, he'd like it either assigned or restricted. My preference would be more to lean towards the restricted to move it to the reserve because that was, I believe, the intent. So what we're looking for is a motion that would move the 2018 money of $95,993 and the 2019 unassigned money of $95,230 to be moved to the restricted fund balance called the Highway Retreatment Fund.
I'll make the motion as recommended by the town clerk and just read to him.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If there isn't, everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so Bill 5-0 to approve the motion. You got that?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. All right, so Kim, is there anything on here that you need to deal with us on the revised budget sheets that you sent us a couple days ago?
No, I haven't changed anything other than I brought down the health officer. The first time I'd sent it out was 1,200. I brought that back down to 100. And I had to change the
1,000.
humanitarians.
1,000.
1,000 from 1,200.
Right.
Because the first sheet I sent out, I had it at 1,200. And then the second sheet that I just sent out, I'm down to 1,000. And the humanitarians, I needed to bump up the humanitarians. We did have one request so far for a humanitarian article of the 1,000 for the church. And then we had to include
Is that included already? On that 11,778, that 1,000?
11,000, I believe it's 11,878.
plus 1,000.
Oh,
There are two
anticipate.
different, there
So
are
it's
two humanitarian articles. The church is voted on separate.
In anticipation.
It'll be voted on separate, but then it's going to be listed as a humanitarian in the actual budget sheet.
Okay, so it is in there, the 1,000.
Hold on, what page is humanitarians on?
3,
3?
pretty near the bottom. Under other voted articles.
Okay, so the anticipated is the 12,878. Last year we had $100 for the rural fire. Remember, we voted that from a special article, so I had to add that $100 in there, and then the 1,000. So we're up to the 12,878.
I got that question too.
And are we not revisiting the health officer for any increase?
We can, Kathy, that's why we're here today.
I was going to when Kim was finished.
I'm all set. Those were the only 2 changes. I do want to just to point out, so it looks as though the overall increase for expenses right now on our budget is $657 increase from last year's expense budget. This is just for the general fund, so it's the highway and the town government. And that would give an overall increase on the revenue portion when I created the revenue of what I anticipate coming in, some up, some down. The taxpayer property tax that I am anticipating collecting would be up by $4,994 from last year, anticipating coming up. And that's it.
But that didn't include capital budget.
That does not include capital, and it does not include, yeah, it's just the capital, I'm sorry.
Capital.
Yeah, the capital and our local agreement. Our local agreement is also figured separately depending on, you know, the ones that get voted for, like the Historical Society, all of them.
Tax reduction or
Yeah.
limit.
Yeah. And that's every year, right? We do that.
That's every year. I'm done.
Okay. All right, so Stan or Kathy, do you want to address the health officer issue?
Well, I know we discussed it last time, and I believe, Bill, you spoke to Rich about the paperwork issue, and I would still recommend that he have the $200 raise or increase.
I would agree with that also.
Yeah, I would also.
Me too.
Alan?
Are we gonna vote or are we voting?
Well, if we all agree, then we vote. We don't have to vote. I mean, if we don't agree, then we vote. But-
Go ahead.
So everybody's in agreement to increase that
Yeah.
by $200.
My issue I raised was contingent of documentation, and it looked to me like the documentation had been furnished.
Are there any other numbers that we want to address, either up, down?
I have one. Could we go back to the overtime? We put in 17,000 the last couple of years. How much was spent in the previous budget?
Overtime on what, highway, John, or
Pages
town-
that,
Town overtime, town highway overtime.
what
Well,
page?
on 11/12, I sent you guys a budget status report. And to show where we're at right now, we had budgeted 17,000 and we had not spent it yet.
But we still got, what, 5 months to go, 6 months to go?
5 months to go, yeah.
Yeah, so it was 17 and we've spent, what, 8,000 or something?
We haven't spent anything yet as of November.
No overtime. Yeah, so
Yeah.
could you tell me the previous year? I think you put in 17 too. How much was spent of that 17?
Okay, let me go back to my computer and I can
Yep.
bring that up.
I had it and then I can't find it now.
Well, she's looking that up. Is there any other budget items that we'd like to revisit or comment on or whatever?
Mr. Chair, this is Suzanne. I have a question, if you don't mind, please.
Go ahead.
And I may have missed this, I just didn't hear it in the earlier discussion. With respect to what was last year's Article 10 on the humanitarian expenses, are those going to remain intact in an article for the town meeting?
As far as I know, they are. The only addition is the Grafton Church or the community church, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did we add that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
It's a separate article.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a separate one.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
Tells
know
it.
why that is that way.
Add that one.
But you know why?
No.
Why is it separate?
Yeah.
Because we've never been voted on before.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the first time.
Oh,
They've
okay.
never been part of the humanitarian
I understand now.
fund.
So if it
So
gets
if
voted
it gets
in,
approved this year, then next year it would automatically be included unless it gets
Okay.
pulled out by the voters.
or unless they don't want it.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, I understand.
Hi, Joe, it's Wendy. Can I ask a question?
Sure, Wendy.
The humanitarian article, I'm not sure what the acronym is. It's SEVEDS, is that how you say it? That's, yeah. Why is that considered a humanitarian, quote unquote, expense? What's humanitarian about it?
I really have to ask Kim.
I think they're giving training for people for jobs. Isn't that part of it?
And have they demonstrated to you all that they do that for Grafton specifically?
Well,
I
that's
think
passed a couple of times, and I don't know if that's ever been actually resolved of how much direct to Grafton that's been.
Wendy,
Yeah.
I do remember we've asked that question and I didn't feel they specifically said Grafton, but they did say things like being involved in the vocational schools, Bellas Falls Vocational, and things that our students participated in. So there were events they did that Grafton people benefited, but not maybe just for Grafton.
They also did something. They also talked about the Wyndham Foundation too, working with them, I do believe. If I
I
remember
think that might
correctly.
have been because of the jobs provided by it or something.
Yeah.
I would just hate to see the humanitarian article voted down in this town meeting specifically with the Australian ballots because of that particular expense. That's all I'm going to say about that. This is the chance for the voters to actually, many of whom don't go to town meeting, to actually participate in the vote. So that's why I bring it up.
Are you suggesting that should be a separate article rather than lumped together?
I would suggest that, but I don't know if it's, if that's something you guys are interested in, but I would suggest that, yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is Suzanne. I support Wendy on this. My sense is, and I listened very carefully to their report yet last year, and I don't think they were as specific. To Al's point, they were very clear about the ancillary ways they serve Grafton, but they weren't clear about the specific ways they serve Grafton. And I know that the way they have worked with, quote unquote, the Wyndham Foundation is in recruiting for our cheesemaker jobs, and that really haven't been, that effective. So I would suggest, I think the amount we give that organization is disproportionate to our other humanitarian expenses, and I would suggest, as Wendy does, to put it in a separate article.
Can we do that, Kim?
Yep, you can do, yeah, you guys are the board and you create whatever article it is that you guys want. They are requesting the same 2037, I believe, and I'll just break it out and give it its own line item in the budget too.
within.
I'll make that motion as requested.
Yeah, I second it.
Any further discussion? So all in favor of Alan's motion to give it its own separate article, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Alrighty, so it has a separate article. That's probably a good point, because you're right, you wouldn't want to vote down, because this is completely different year this year now. You don't have the opportunity to amend. It's either yay or nay.
Yeah, and Brad Voigt's been dead for a long time, and he used to be the one who would always vote this article down anyway.
Let me also say, and I think Kim got this information, that many of the towns are taking all their humanitarians out this year because of budget.
I don't see that.
Well, and especially this year, I mean, if you're voting up your capital budget and stuff like that and take out humanitarian, that wouldn't make sense to me at all.
Not at all.
no.
I agree.
Do we have any other items that we want to, or Kim, what
Yeah.
about?
Okay, I have those figures. So for 2018, $16,157 was spent. 2019, $16,326 was spent. 2020, we were down to $8,499. And then this year, we've only used 115 so far.
Do you know the reason why that was down that one year?
All I can say, maybe it was the snow and the overtime wasn't as
Right.
intense.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay, so do we have any other items that we need to revisit, change, talk about, whatever, on the budget, on the proposed budget? Well, Kim, are you looking for a motion to accept this budget now? Is that how you want to handle this?
I don't believe it's so much right now. It's when it comes time for the articles, and you will accept the articles at the time.
Okay.
Okay, so what I do is I take these numbers that will create the article for the selectmen's budget that you will then vote on.
Okay, so we don't have to have a formal vote here now.
No, I don't believe so.
So we will have an opportunity to do that at some point down the road. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, as I wrote to you yesterday, and for other people to know, on January 4th, you will tentatively approve all the articles for the town meeting. And because the deadline is the 14th, you will have a meeting on the 14th at 4:15. The deadline is 4 o'clock on the 14th of January to approve the articles then, just in case any new articles come up between the meeting on the 4th and the 14th.
Well, so you really wouldn't approve the articles on the 4th. You're going to wait
No.
till the 14th. You can view them, and we should have them compiled, but it's the 14th that you really want to vote on them.
Could we approve on the 14th, on the 4th, with the idea that if any additional come in, then we would have that special meeting on the 14th to review and approve or deny additional?
That was my question too. I didn't talk to Alan, but I talked to Bill about it. Is that if there was no changes, why would we have to have a special meeting?
Well,
could.
because the statute gives a particular deadline. The statute gives that, so it
We could
does.
we could still put the meeting, and if nothing happens, we could cancel the meeting. No?
I don't know. I've never been asked that. That would be a legal question. I just go by the statute. We've always waited to the deadline in case.
Okay, I'm just curious if everything was approved, like, but, so be it.
No, it's up to you guys. I'll have everything ready, I
That's
think.
all.
We'll see what motion you guys make on the 4th.
Okay, why don't we
Okay.
wait till the 4th and we can go?
Right.
Okay, the other thing is, I would like to pass the articles by the town attorney, just to make sure, especially those several that I pointed out to you, make sure that they're properly worded. If that's okay with everybody, I'll do that.
Fine with me.
Fine.
I think that this year you got to be super cautious on your I's and your T's, because it is going to be Australian ballot, and you don't want to have anything that can be construed later on. So I guess if there's nothing else on the budget, do we have any other business? If not, public comment? Suzanne, you still there?
Hello.
I'm here.
Have any public comment, or
No,
Wendy?
thank you. Thank you.
I'll
Except to
call you
say
back
thank
in a
you
meeting.
for this process. I think it went very well today, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have one thing.
Yeah,
For some of you, I sent I asked Microsoft people, asked our Dominion Tech, and the new meetings in the future will be by link to the agenda. I'm not going to send invitations out because I don't need to do that. In this way, it'll be more in keeping. Wait 1 second. You guys can't hear me. Wait a second.
I can hear you.
we can hear you, Bill.
Okay.
I can hear you, Bill.
Everybody, I can't hear myself because of that radio. Anyway, so I'll send the agenda to everybody, and maybe even to my residence list. Anybody wanting to come to the meeting will just click on the link, and it's an easier way to get on too. It's more clear how to get on. So
And Bill,
that's just in the future.
you post that agenda to the website too, right, Bill?
It'll be on the website. It'll be everywhere.
Yeah.
So that link will be available to anybody.
And so if you went to the website, it would be active off the website just as well, which is Wendy's point, correct?
Correct.
all right, well, if there's no other business, thank you, everybody. We need a motion to adjourn. And,
So-
So,
okay, second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
I,
All right.
Okay, and remember, we have our meeting on Monday. I think the agenda is pretty much set, although I'll talk to Bill, but I think you've already got some advanced copies, so if you have any questions on the agenda, talk to Bill. Before you.
The only thing added to it will be the light posts.
No, did you put the cemetery on there too, Bill?
Oh, yes, I think I already added that.
I didn't see it on it, but make sure it's on there. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty, well, stay warm, guys, enjoy the snow.
It's coming down.
Alrighty.